This episode of Hobby Nightmares is sponsored by Minimaker, the people who are basically making sure that I get to do armies that I wouldn't normally do. One of which is the Sisters of Battle. Absolutely awesome looking army in their store right now. Better models than GW? I think so, especially ones like this. All legal, all above board, absolutely stunning miniatures, and the best thing is, when you get them out of the nicely packaged thing that you get through the post, they look exactly like this. I can attest to that, because my Bretonian army is growing by the day. Top quality stuff, and if you go on the website right now, you get 2 times loyalty points for every single purchase you make on there. And if you use the promo code Northern Exile that is down below, you get 10% off your order anyway at checkout. So if you want to get some really cool tanks or some really cool models to go with your 40k or Grimdark Future or whatever it is you're playing right now, they have it there in their store. So go ahead, support the channel if you want to get any models or any stocking fillers for you this Christmas time. Make sure you head over to Minimaker and tell them that Northern Exile sent you if you can, and you get yourself 10% off at checkout. Well worth it if you ask me. Right, now, Hobby Nightmares time. Let's jump in, shall we? We have a few today. One of them is very long, and the other one is not as long. That's what she said. So, Wind88 is here with us, and he says, "Hi Northern, enclosed is another Hobby Nightmare aptly named. Aptly named? What am I doing with my mouth right now? Aptly named. Sub-Zero Nuclear Strike." Alright, let me take a sip of tea. Maybe my mouth will reset if I do this. I tend to think when I do, like, really stupid things, like say stupid things on Hobby Nightmares, like my mouth goes all twisty. It's my body begging for tea, but there we are. Sub-Zero Nuclear Strike. Many, many moons ago, in the early 1980s, I wargamed with a group in northern Minnesota in the US. Wow, you must have been cold. We didn't have a regular place to game, so we rotated around to each other's homes. We played a lot of miniatures games, with a lot of World War III modern micro armour, simulating Warsaw Pact versus NATO armed forces. With the current levels and past Middle Eastern conflicts in mind, our simulations mirrored more fantasy rather than reality, but we didn't know any better. It was December in northern Minnesota, and it was minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Yeah, I think that's like minus 30, isn't it, in English? We were to play another modern micro armour game in Howard's garage, an uninsulated attached garage with no heat. We initially balked at this offer, but he confidently stated, "Don't worry dudes, I have a great space heater we can use." Alrighty then. So we set up on the oversized 12 foot by 6 foot board, the garage door down, alternating between putting on gloves and having to take them off to move our minis. Honestly, North, it hurts when you touch cold metal minis with bare hands when they are that cold. The clouds over the table were from our breath, not anyone smoking. But we were that dedicated to our hobby, or just stupid, or maybe a bit of both. A bit of both. A bit of both. Dude, I can tell you how cold it gets, like... Okay, British people, there is a very good reason why Americans roll their eyes when you talk about how grim and cold England gets, okay? Even in places like Chicago, I was there during a polar vortex. It was minus 38 outside, in English. Minus 38. Okay? We did an experiment where we walked onto our porch at the back of our flat where we were staying. I got a pot noodle out from my, my plane stash that I had on the plane. I put boiling hot water in it. I waited, I got a fork, I stuck it in the noodles, I pulled it out, left it there for 5 seconds and let the fork go. It stayed there. That's how cold it was. It flash froze. Yeah. Local government were paying Uber drivers, instead of their business, they were paying Uber drivers 5 times their regular salary because they ordered everybody to stay at home and not go outside for fear of frostbite. That's cold, right? Minus 3 or 4 in the UK isn't cold. It just isn't. I had a friend, David, who was from California, and he even, like, where he was from, Northern California, He was like, dude, UK isn't cold. He would walk around in shorts and t-shirts all the time. Okay, it's just like, you know, to them, it's not cold. So, yeah, we do tend to get very protective of how, like, grim and cold the England is, especially the north. It isn't, dude. Like, we have the most depressingly normal country in the world. It's just normal. You know, our big animal, what is it? A lion. We don't have any lions here. Do you know what our actual animal is? The badger. You know, we're normal. We're slow. That's the UK, man. We've got history, we've got castles. That's pretty much it. Although those are two very good things to have. I bet a lot of Americans would trade a lot of really cool stuff that they have to have our history and our castles and things like that, right? Anyway. Then one of our plucky numbered remembered the space heater. Hey, Howard, it's time to fire that bad boy up. I'm freezing here. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, murmured Howard. So he ducked under the table, and we heard him banging around with something, emerging shortly afterwards with a cord in his hand. This should work great, Howard confidently stated. Then, we heard what I can only describe as a jet engine on afterburner, fired up under the table. It was nearly industrial, 6 foot long, almost pipe bomb looking device that had a glowing lattice that heated the air now blasting through it. It was truly deafening in that garage, the heater sounding like a NATO airstrike or maybe a tactical nuclear strike into our battle. But Howard hadn't thought things through on that day. The garage floor was unfinished. It was just dirt and dust, with a raging jet engine just inches above it. Suddenly, a nuclear strike had clouded our wargaming board, the radioactive dust billowing up so thick that we couldn't see through it. Howard swung about, finally snagging the cord to kill the nuclear strike. We raised the garage door, eager to fill our lungs with clean, searingly cold air as opposed to the dust-laden smog in the room. Coughing, sneezing, we stayed outside to let the dust settle. We then went back into the garage to pick up the game. The Mini's owners were painfully aware of how their painstakingly painted miniatures and base terrain were now coated with an even coat of desert tan. Weeks later, I entered my buddy's house to see him with a clean and wet brush, cursing as he tried to remove the dust and dirt from his tanks. "What you doing?" I asked, a crap-eating grin on my face. "Haven't you seen a decontamination operation?" he sniped. "It took me a couple of hours to clean that crap off my company. Only 4 more to go." Cheers, Wind88. Awesome, dude. Awesome. Like, ladies, if you ever wonder why men don't live as long, this is the kind of thing we get up to. This is the kind of thing that we do, right? We would go, this'll work, and we plug it in, and off we go to the races, right? And we're no longer around. Anyway, speaking of ladies, we have one here. Sarah is back, folks, with another hobby nightmare, or 2, I think. And she says, "Good morning, Northern Exile. Yeah, it was morning where you were. 5:33 a.m. What is wrong with you? Go back to bed. Please." Right? Good morning, Northern Exile. Thank you for reading out my stories so far. I know they aren't the most exciting or fantastic, but I'm glad you and your listeners have enjoyed them. Whenever you poke fun about my crush on John, I laugh and nod along. I understand how I sound. Yes. This is a tournament tale where John and I went to a 40k doubles tournament. Why was I going with John, you may ask? Well, we are dating. It happened. If you're interested, I've included that story after this one. Okay, well, I'm very glad it worked out well for you. Sarah, you've mentioned before that dudes tend to get like very frustrated when you say no to them, or like, you know, there are quite a few incels in the hobby, right? You know, I know you don't see them that way, but you know, you mentioned a few in your hobby nightmares, which is fine. I want you to remember to see the happy ending you have here, right, with John. Okay, if your sexes are reversed, if John's the woman and you're the guy lusting after her, this happy ending 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen, right? I've known so many women in the hobby. They always get boyfriends, dude. Like, they always get boyfriends. Always. It always comes about. If they like somebody, invariably they get them in the end. It just happens, right? because hobby dudes aren't used to a lot of attention, you know, and eventually they get the message and go, oh, this girl likes me, okay, and that's what happens, right? The other way around, it doesn't happen, dude. Like, I've seen dozens of men crush on women in the hobby, and they never get anywhere, right? Mainly because they're scared of going and talking to them and being accused of being creeps and things like that. So they never get to have their happy ending, right? So whenever you judge dudes in the hobby, I'm not saying you do, Sarah, but if any other ladies listening and you judge men who are in the hobby, right, as being like incels or whatever, just remember, this happy ending Sarah got, if the roles are reversed and she's a man and John is a woman, this happy ending doesn't happen 9 times out of 10. Right? The guy just gets to move on with his life and think of what could have been. So just remember that before we go any further. Alright. I was scrolling through Facebook one day and saw this doubles tournament advertised at a hobby store I had not seen before. It looked like a very casual event. It wasn't on BCP, Best Cost Pairings, and you didn't need to submit your lists early or anything. 2,000 points aside, 1,000 points each player in any combination of factions that you like. If you took the same faction, they would not benefit from each other's rules though, to keep things fair. I offered John the use of my Black Templars. This is a huge deal for me. Throughout the day, a person will touch their face, their hair, their lips, they'll eat, they'll scratch themselves, go to the bathroom, and then touch their models. I hate other people touching my models because all that bacteria and skin and oil then goes on them and you can't really clean them. After every tournament, I'll wash my objective markers, dice and tape measure. These things are on the battle mats all day that just accumulate skin and hair and spittle, so for me, allowing somebody to touch my beloved models is no small thing. In the end, John suggested that we do double demons. He will go Slanesh and I will go Nurgle. I like using my Faticus at any opportunity, and this sounded like a fun duo, so I said yes. John's list comprised of the purple nuclear weapon, Shalaxi Hellbane, a keeper of secrets, 2 units of demonettes, and a trance weaver. My list was Faticus with the Feel No Pain enhancement, Epidemius, 3 units of plague bearers, a beast of Nurgle, a Nurgle soul grinder, and a unit of 6 Nurglings. The overall plan was that I would butt my chunky boys on objectives and try to hold against the Alpha Strike. Then John's hard-hitting Slanesh units would counter-charge. The day came when John picked me up and drove us the hour to the hobby store. It was kind of the bad part of the city, a part I could not go in alone even during the day. We arrive at the store and it's the typical fun and colourful hobby shop. Warhammer, Bolt Action, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and a wide variety of models and cards and merchandise on display. A really cool place that was a little incongruous with the suburb it was nestled into. The tables were all set up for the tournament and the players were talking and showing off their models. The terrain was very thematic, with no consideration for serious tournament play. One of the maps was desert themed. There were a few forest and jungle themed maps. There were 2 ice maps. One was like some sort of nomadic village. It was nice to attend an event just for fun without any consideration for being competitive, and the cute, casual map setups looked neat. Honestly, I was just so happy to be there with John. We received the pairings, and were placed against 2 guys who were obviously close friends, Thomas and Jeff. They were both playing Custodes. We introduced ourselves and explained our forces. The game was very fun, our 2 armies working quite well together. It helps that we were very experienced with demons too. It also helps that Custodes shooting isn't very good. Thomas and Jeff were great opponents too. We won handily and waited for our next pairing. We then played into Eldar and a Tau duo. I can't remember their names, again, very nice guys. There was hardly any terrain and our demons were shot apart very quickly and sent sullenly back to the warp. We noticed the scene here allowed many takebacks, and so we were not strict with the movement, being casual in the extreme. But when in Rome, do as the Romans do. It didn't bother us, we were having a nice time. Then our last pairing, and this is where the hobby nightmare sets in. Our opponents were both older men in their 50s, I'd say. There was Jim, a very thin man with a scraggly white beard, and James, who was more paunchy. I'd noticed Jim was a little cantankerous throughout the day, yelling and complaining about dice rolls or rules. He was in no better of a mood now. Yes, hi, let's discuss our list, shall we? Jim said to us when we met at the table. Jim seemed to be in a hurry, but then took an unreasonably long time explaining his army. They were both using Space Marines. Jim was using Dark Angels with the Gladius detachment, and James was using Space Wolves Stormlance. James didn't say a lot. He let Jim explain his list and stood there nodding sagely. Okay. So, Jim continued, since we are both Space Marines, we both get Oath of Moment and can benefit from each other's Oath targets. No, you can't. Remember, the tournament rules, even I remember those and I wasn't there. You're not allowed to use each other's stuff, right? Oh, I said. I thought the tournament rules said same factions won't benefit from each other's rules. Jim sighed like I had something that drained the last of his patience. Oh, we are both Space Marines. It says re-roll hits on the Oath of Moment target. So you pick one Oath target each, and there are 2 targets our combined army can re-roll against, Jim said, as if talking to a particularly dense child. Not that it addressed the issue at all. Okay, that's fine, John piped in. But same thing goes for our Shadow of Chaos rule then. Fine, whatever, Jim says dismissively. John sends me a sidelong wink. This was going to be good. I agree it's going to be good, but I do think Jim has a point here. Like, Oath of Moment. Now, so I think what he's saying is, right, we can both use Oath of Moment, even though we both have the same rule, but they can't be at the same target, right? Do you know what I mean? If he'd have said that, then I agree, he's right. But if what he's saying is we both get to do it at the same target, that's kind of going against the rules of the tournament. And so, yes, you both get to do your Shadow of Chaos rule. That would be pretty cool. Anyway, Jim's chapter has custom colours of grey and red. It looked really cool, and you could tell he was a fine painter. We start the game. Jim talks the whole time, like he is explaining things for all 4 of us. James just keeps standing there, moving his models around occasionally with Jim's approval. The terrain layout is Dawn of War. Between the centre and home objectives is a large house that we agreed would use the rules of ruins. In our turn 2, John's Keeper of Secrets and Shalaxi was about to wreak havoc on James's Thunderwolf cavalry. Faticus had placed himself on the centre objective, and this turn I used the Shadow of Chaos to deep strike a unit of Plague Bearers into the ruin, the home objective, and Jim's home objective. Okay. Sorry, in the room between the home objective and Jim's home objective. Got ya. Guarding that home objective was Azrael and a big unit of Hellblasters and a Biologus with an enhancement. This is a very common and powerful combination where the Hellblasters get lethal, sustained hits, and a 4+ invulnerable save. The placement of the Plague Bearers had them less than 7 inches away from his Hellblaster unit. With the banner, it meant they only needed to roll a 5 to make the charge. The Plague Bearers had no chance of killing this unit, but it could tie them down to stop them shooting other targets, and Plague Bearers have good objective control and are pretty tough to kill. So, with some lucky manoeuvring, I might even be able to take their home objective. Nice one, John whispered to me, pointing at the Plague Bearers. I smiled at the praise. The charge phase arrived. Okay. Jim, my Plague Bearers will charge Azrael's unit, I said. Go ahead, be my guest, he replied and smiled an over-exaggerated grin. I rolled an 8. With the banner, it becomes a 9-inch charge. More than enough for me to get into engagement range and get some models into his home objective too. I touch the first Plague Bearer beginning to move it, and Jim yells, Overwatch! I stop and look at the board state, not sure what he's shooting at me with. Okay, what's shooting? The Hellblasters, obviously, Jim says, reaching for fistfuls of dice. My guys are in the ruin, you can't see them, I explain. I know that, I'm shooting when they come out, Jim says, with that not-so-patient tone again. I look at the board again, thinking I'm missing something obvious. That happens in 40k sometimes. Sorry, Jim, how are you able to Overwatch me? Jim rolled his eyes, whilst moving his head in the same motion. I'll shoot you when you come out of the building, he says. Well, you can only Overwatch at the beginning or end of the charge. You can't shoot me at the beginning because of the ruin, and you can't shoot me at the end because I'll be in engagement range. Yeah, I know, I can shoot you at the end of the charge, Jim says. No, you can't shoot into combat, I say. Yes, I can. Read the stratagem. It says right there, at the start of or end of any move, including a charge, Jim explains to me. You can't use Overwatch to shoot into combat, Jim. I'll be honest, I was getting annoyed at this guy. It says it right on the stratagem, beginning or end of any move, fallback or charge. I can, Jim yells. And people start looking over. Jim, read the first part of the stratagem where it says who can use it, John said calmly but firmly. Okay, cool. He took out the stratagem from the core rules printout and showed it to Jim. Only a unit that is eligible to shoot can be targeted for Overwatch. The Hellblasters would be within engagement range of her Plague Bearers, so they aren't eligible to shoot, so they can't use Overwatch. Oh right, I should have said that 30 seconds ago, I thought to myself. Jim would not so easily give up his master stroke though. Then why does it say you can Overwatch a unit that ended its charge? Jim yelled across the table at John. Because, in some specific, wacky situations, you can, but the Hellblasters can't shoot if they are in engagement range, so they can't shoot Overwatch. That is 100% absolutely correct. John kept yelling his rationale at John, some spittle starting to fly out of his mouth. Look, I can't explain it any clearer. Let's just ask the tournament organiser and not waste any more time, John said. I'd let John take over from here. Why would they include that part if you can't ever shoot at the end of a charge? So that means you can't Overwatch something when they charge? What if they fail the charge? Jim was raving a bit now and makes less and less sense. Jim, John said, very firmly, and his face was no longer friendly. We aren't getting anywhere. Let's get the tournament organiser and stop wasting the clock. Fine, get the tournament organiser. You'll see. Okay, this right here, from Sarah's Nightmare, this is why I don't like 40k. Okay? Jim is not in the right here, not because he's wrong about his rules. I don't know whether he's right or wrong. I don't play 40k. I play one-page rules, right? But what I will say is this is the rules' fault. This is the game's fault. The game's rules being so obtuse and circumstantial and nitpicky, and where you can have completely two different opposing interpretations of the rules. This is a bad game system, okay? And I get this through Hobby Nightmares a lot. This right here is a bad game system. If you can have arguments like this at every tournament, and you can, trust me, I read about them a lot, this is not a very good game system to me, right? This is the game's fault. Jim's being a dick, don't get me wrong, but this is the game's fault, in my opinion, alright? Moving on. So, we went to the tournament organiser. Jim rushed over, yelling the situation at the poor fellow, but he knew, before he knew what was happening, and John explained it calmer. I don't know guys, sounds like you can do the Overwatch, but I'm not really rule savvy. Do you want me to ask some players instead? He said. Yeah. We will ask some other players because I know you definitely cannot, but there we go, said John. We asked a few other guys and they all agreed. You cannot do Overwatch if you're in engagement range. Well, fucking fine then. I'm over this anyway, Jim said, throwing his hands in the air and stomping back to our table. Perhaps, Mr. Northern Exile, you'd be thinking we should have just let this go considering the tournament was so casual and all, but the way I see it is 40k is a game, and it's rules that make the game. Without rules, there is no game, and I don't think people should have to go back down on a rule so obvious just because the other party wants to make it into a huge deal. John and I tried to keep it calm, showed him the rule to read for himself. I didn't want to get bullied in the game because Jim was willing to explode on the issue. I honestly don't know why it was such a contentious point for him. Perhaps he just decided to double down rather than admit he was wrong. As you can guess, the rest of the game was quite icy after that. James was the same, and he started making friendly small talk with us. Jim was pure smite. Spite, sorry. I read that wrong. His language became much ruder and pejorative. For instance, he marked my beast of Nurgle as his oath target and said, "I'm going to smash its face in. Hope you enjoy it." Another time, he picked up some dice for a roll and said very loudly, "Don't be a little bitch." Then he rolled and the dice said, "I was talking to my dice, not you." I know John was keeping an eye on things, so I wasn't worried about anything. I was disappointed that our last game had devolved into this, though. Sometimes I'd roll my eyes and forget to say they were invulnerable saves. As demons, your saves are nearly always invulnerable saves. If I forgot to stipulate the saving roll was an invulnerable save one, Jim would immediately say, "What saves are these? Armor? Invulnerable? Feel no pain? You got to tell me before you roll." He was right, and I'd reply, "Oh, sorry Jim, these are invulnerable saves. The demons don't really have armor, they all have invulnerable saves." But then he would roll a string of dice without explanation and declare 8 wounds, AP 1, damage 2, or something. As the score for John and I got steadily higher, Jim started doing more and more take-backs. He charged Faticus with a dreadnought. John measured the dreadnought to Shalaxi, finding it was under 6 inches away. "Heroic intervention," John said, starting to move Shalaxi. Actually, I want to put it here," Jim said, immediately moving the dreadnought so it was now further than 6 inches away and denying Shalaxi the heroic intervention. John didn't say anything to challenge the move, so neither did I. In the end, we won quite handily. The dual Shadow of Chaos meaning our demons were jumping out and doing 6-inch charges all over the place and scoring secondaries. Jim said nothing, but James shook both our hands. It was a relief. It was over. When we were back in the car and driving home, we saw Jim walking to the dilapidated train station in this bad part of the city alone, with his backpack on and holding his plastic cases of models. John saw me looking. "You feel sorry for him, don't you?" He asked me. Yeah, I do. I don't know why. I do. Yeah? I honestly do. This guy's had a bad day. I think we've all been this guy in the past where we've just had a bad day and we've made somebody else feel shitty and it's made us feel even worse. And you know what? Walking to a train station in the cold on your own with your models after taking a bad defeat when you're a dickhead during the game, that's gotta feel like shit. That's gotta feel really bad. Do you know what I mean? Like really, really bad. Let's carry on. "Yeah, I do. I don't know why," I admitted in the car. "It's because he seems lonely and vulnerable. The game is obviously a very big part of his life, perhaps the biggest thing. It's why he took that loss so hard. I kind of feel bad for him too," said John. I was going to ask John if maybe we could drive him home, but by the time we could have turned around, Jim was already lost from view. "I don't think I want to go there again," I said. "Me neither," said John. The whole interaction with Jim bothered me, I guess, but I still had a really nice day with John, and that's what matters. Hope you enjoyed another of my mundane tales. So, the story of how John and I started dating, if you're interested. This was earlier in the year. Well, yeah, we've got to do this one because it kind of brings things full circle for your story, so let's do it. I haven't seen John in the store for nearly 2 months. Again, we're going back in time now to before all of this happened. So, this is how you guys started dating. Got ya. I haven't seen John in the store for nearly 2 months, but he popped up on the group chat every now and then. Eventually, John asked for a match in the group chat, and I tagged his question and replied, "Demon mirror match? Sounds good. Battle in the warp. Tomorrow we're open, meaning store opening time." "Sure thing," I said. Mr. Exile, I was so excited I barely slept, and the morning crept by excruciatingly slow. I was at the store 15 minutes early, but the manager saw me and let me in. I didn't dress up or anything this time. I wasn't going to flirt or try seducing him. Not that I know how to do those things anyway, as you saw. Dude, you don't need to, right? You don't need to. This is what I'm saying. You're in a hobby situation. You don't need to do any of those things. Bat your eyelids, play the game, and laugh at all of his jokes. He'll ask you out. this is what I meant before. About if you're a dude, you very rarely get these happy endings, because it doesn't work that way for us, right? If you're a woman, and you're decent looking, and you have a guy in the hobby that you like the look of, if they're single, you'll get your guy. I'm telling you. You will get your guy. 9 times out of 10, you will get your guy. If this is the other way around, and you're a guy who's decent to average looking, right? And there's a girl in your hobby group that you like, and she's single, 9 times out of 10, you won't get the girl. Why? Because your own nervousness, you don't want to seem like a creep, you have no idea how to even start an interaction with a woman at this level, right? It just doesn't happen for you. It can do. I talk about on the channel many times on how you can do this, on how you can, get girlfriends, things like that. I've done it many times, with some success and with other times not so successful. But I've had success, which is why I spread what I've done, and sometimes it works. But 9 times out of 10, the average dude looking for a girlfriend in the hobby doesn't get one if he sees a girl that he likes. 9 times out of 10. The reason why I know this is even dudes, I've known dudes who are better at talking to women than I am, and even they struggle in the hobby. Mainly because you just don't want to ruin somebody's day, right? You stop yourself from going over there and talking to women, because you don't want to make them feel like this is their safe space. This is where they want to be to play with their models and to roll their dice, right? You don't want to impeach on that. You don't want to cross the line, Anyway. John came in on time and we greeted each other. We talked through our lists. I had the same one I'd been playing a while, all Nurgle and Khorne. John was quite different, being a mixture of Nurgle, Tzeentch and Slaanesh. He had the terrifying Shalaxi Hellbane, a keeper of secrets, a great unclean one of his own, a Nurgle Soulgrinder, the Changeling, and a whole bunch of smaller things like Fiends, Screamers, Flamers and Plague Bearers. We set a match and had a slow-paced game, talking about our strategies and allowing takebacks. It was so nice to just be with him. I have to have him to myself in some small way. I know I may be sounding creepy, but I promise I wasn't. I was just enjoying his company. Now, you sound like a girl who likes somebody, dude. This is just normal. Shalaxi and Skarbrand squared off for the centre of the battlefield. Skarbrand is a badass demon, make no mistake, but Shalaxi is in a league all of his own. At the time, he was 450 points of pure perfect murder madness. Against characters, monsters and vehicles, he gets to reroll charges, hits, wounds and damage. His spear, Soul Piercer, does d6 plus 2 damage and has 6 attacks. They hit on 2s and have a strength of 14. Shalaxi does not mess about. In the lore, he was made to fight and kill bloodthirsters. I knew I couldn't bait John into charging Faticus with Hellbane. John knew how that would be just a tar pit for a few turns. I figured my best bet was a double charge of my Skarbrand and the Bloodthirster. During his turn, John moved Hellbane to tiptoe the centre objective. There was a ruin close by, and inside that ruin, he put his Fiends of Slaanesh and Mask of Slaanesh. I knew what they did, but I calculated the double charge would be enough to get through. I moved Skarbrand and the Bloodthirster up. I didn't have them in reserve this game because I know how fast the Keeper and Shalaxi can get in my face, and I wanted to be able to react in turn 1. I charge Skarbrand and he makes it. It's a 6-inch charge from my Thirster, he rolls a 5. That's okay, I have the CP. I re-roll a 4. Oh, I hate it when that happens, John says in commiseration. Damn it, that was an important charge, I pout. The Fiends gave a -1 to hit in combat aura. This wasn't going to bother me, since the Bloodthirster had a +1 hit aura, and Skarbrand is still within range, but the Mask makes Skarbrand -1 to wound, and gives Skarbrand a +1 to wound me. A very cheeky technical piece if you can use her right. And John was very good at using her. Shalaxi also takes one of Skarbrand's attacks away too. Skarbrand lashes out but can't kill Shalaxi since he is wounding on 4s now. Shalaxi has no issues dispatching my brave Skarbrand. That little bitch, I say, staring at the mask. And John laughs. You'd be surprised how often she gets called that, he says. We keep playing through the game, and I play very hard, catching John off guard a few times, and even taking over his home objective at some point. We are both taking our time, no clocks, just having fun. Then something happened that changed the situation. Oscar, a regular, comes in for a game on his own. He saw us, waved hello, and came over to speak to John. Hey man, how was your trip? 4 weeks in Europe and UK, right? Oscar asked. Hey Oscar, actually, fuck man, it was okay, John replied. I never heard John swear before. It took me aback a bit. What do you mean, what happened? Oscar asked. John sighed. Europe itself was great to see. I love the old churches and cathedrals especially, you know. But well, Gabrielle treated on me through the whole trip and then broke up with me at the end. So yeah. John laughed. I didn't see that coming, let me tell you. After 4 years with somebody you love, you don't really expect that. My jaw dropped. Who would cheat on a man like this? How could you do that to him? My heart went out to him. I felt I was witness to something I perhaps should not be, and it wasn't my place to interrupt the conversation, so I just waited patiently. Then I told John I inflicted 8 wounds on his soul grinder. Kidding. No, don't kid. Don't kid. That's an amazingly hobby thing to do. Like, feel sorry for somebody and go, by the way, that bitch is dead. I killed it, right? That's really cool. Anyway. Bro, are you fucking serious? Oscar was incredulous. How do you know she was cheating on you? Weren't you on our tour trip together? John looked at the ground and frowned. Well, she was always a great girlfriend, so I didn't recognise the signs at first. Maybe I just didn't want to, but by the end it was clear. Anyway, I don't really want to go into it. That sucks, man. That fucking sucks. I bet the flight home was really shit too, Oscar said. Actually, on the second to last day, she told me she was staying on a 2-year working visa. I had no idea, so I went home alone, which honestly was a lot better. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about it, John said, shrugging. Yeah, what she's done, she's met somebody over there and then sorted the visa out whilst you're over there. Dude, that is... low-key, this is like one of the worst girlfriends we've ever had on Hobby Nightmares, and she's not even a part of the nightmare. Dude, what? No problem, man, said Oscar. Just let me know if you want to talk later. Good to see you're not home crying about it, though. Oscar slapped him on the shoulder and went to set up his game. Guys are a mystery to me sometimes. No, yeah, listen. We are simple creatures. This is what men do, right? You know? Like, you can meet a male friend and he's like, yeah, my dad died 3 years ago. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. Cool. Anyway, do you want a beer? Right? That's just how we are. That's just how we are. Whereas women would be like, my dad died yesterday. Oh my god. Oh. Let's all come round and paint each other's nails. You know, all that shit. Like, you can not speak to a guy friend for 3 years. Go, hey dude. Right, oh, my dad. How are you? I'm cool. How's your dad? Oh, he died 3 years ago. Oh, really? Oh, that sucks. You want a beer? Sure. That's it. We're simple creatures. Now, where were we? John asked, returning to the game. Then the coin dropped. He's single. Holy shit, he's single. Then the internal debate started. Ask him out, but it's soon after the breakup. Guys don't care about that. He'll think you're desperate. If you don't ask him out, some other prettier bitch will. Then I thought, what would my friend Jeremy, Northern Exile, and his listeners recommend? Ask him out, I heard you yell in my mind. Yeah, sorry guys, this is my fault. Again, I'm sorry. Another one off the market. Sorry. Sorry. The end of the game came. We put the last points into the Tabletop Battles app. That was close, Sarah. I think next time you might get me, John foretold. Yeah, maybe. The Sith Apprentice will overtake the Sith Lord or something, I joked. John laughed. I hope not. Usually the Sith Lord dies when that happens. Do it now. Don't think. You've already picked the words. Just say them, I'm telling myself. Good grief. I don't know how men do this regularly. My stomach was in knots and my hands were sweating. Thank you so much. Alright, before I carry on, thank you so much for saying that. You've instantly gone up several rungs. You went low, by the way, I'm just saying. You've gone up several rungs in my estimation. Like, literally, just by saying that. Yeah, how do guys do this? And by the way, Sarah, you knew there was a good chance he was going to say, yes, he's a dude. You're probably, I don't know what you look like, but you're probably pretty, right? He's a dude. You already get along, right? He's probably going to say yes. Now imagine having to do this When every bone in your body is screaming, she's going to say no and she's going to humiliate you. Yeah? Or worse, you're going to ruin your friendship by asking this girl out. If a girl asks a guy out and he says no, one, that's very rare, right? Even if he's not single, just, you know, that just happens, right? It's very rare. And number two, it doesn't ruin the friendship. He'll just take that as another notch on his ego. Yeah, you know, another girl likes me, right? And you can just be friends, right? With a man, though, no, it's humiliation. It's utter humiliation. You feel like an absolute creep. And it just ruins the friendship. So imagine all that mixed into your feelings here. What I'm saying is, Sarah, think about how you were feeling and times it by 5. And then put self-loathing in there too. And you've got what men go through. That's why I say it's very rare that they get their happy ending. Which is why people are quite embittered sometimes. But thank you for saying it. I really, really respect and commiserate with guys for having to do this so often. Thank you very much. Hey John, I start? Yeah? I was going to watch the new Beetlejuice movie later today. Do you want to come with me? Beetlejuice? Yeah, sure. I like the first one. Is Keating in it again? He asked. Just like that, we were going to watch a movie together. Actually, he is, I said a bit too loudly. He's a great actor. He made that last Flash movie. I have a hankering for pizza and beer. Want to get some before the session? I looked down at the table, pretending to pack up terrain to hide my ear-to-ear smile. And yes, he actually said the word hankering. That sounds nice, I said. Cool. Want me to pick you up or should we meet somewhere? He asked. I wanted him to pick me up, but I knew some of my brothers would be at home and they'd definitely give him a hard time. I didn't want anything to happen that might wreck things. I'll meet you wherever you want to eat. Easy peasy, he said. We packed away, talked about the game, and where we could get pizza. We decided on a little Italian place that was a short walk from the cinema. That's a nice trick with Salaxi, the fiends in the mask, I say. You like it? Gets a lot of people off guard. Works with the keeper too. Have you thought about Skull Crushers with their leader? They hit super hard. Well, I'll see you soon, punk, John said, and he left. I love that he called me punk. I don't know why. Well, again, I don't know. It just, yeah. I don't know. It was working out well. I was counting down the minutes until pizza time. I decided to go as I was, in my casual clothes. Firstly, I thought it would be a bit weird if I dressed up and he didn't change clothes. And secondly, if I dressed up, my brothers would have suspected something. They know Jeremy and Alan, and know I don't dress very girly when I see them. So if I had put on a dress and nice shoes, they would have known something was up. You probably don't remember, but I did dress up once to go to the store when I knew John was there, and they bothered me with a ton of questions. They're very protective of their only sister, I guess, and I love them for it. John and I meet and have a very nice time. We talk about the hobby, work, and other games we like. Before I go any further, guys, if the girl you like has brothers, ask her out. I'm serious. If the girl you like has brothers, ask her out. She'll probably say yes. Just saying. Because they empathise with men. They were brought up with them. They know what men go through. They were brought up with them. They empathise with them. It's a really good, right? It's a really good sign. She's got 2 or 3 brothers, especially if they're older than her, and she's seen them go through things. Ask her out, if you like her. And because even if they let you down, they're not going to do it like a, get away, sort of a thing. It's going to be a, nah, dude, like, I'm just not ready right now, or it's going to be like a gentle put down, or you know, just do it. I tell him about my disaster of a Crusade game against Ryan. I told him how he started in their new Crusade and how much fun it was so far. John's really into Helldivers 2 at the moment, and I tell him I'm just replaying Skyrim for the umpteenth time. Vampire melee destruction maids for those who are interested. He doesn't mention Gabrielle. We walk to the cinema and share some popcorn. He paid for dinner, and I paid for the movie. The temptation to hold his hand was fierce, but I restrained myself. I wasn't sure if there was a romantic interest or we were going as pals. Afterwards, he walked me back to my car and we said goodbye. No kiss, but that's okay. I still had a lovely time. Since then, we've been hanging out heaps. And yes, we are now dating. Eventually, he did meet my family. I warned him about my brothers, but he said it wouldn't be an issue. My brothers weren't too hard on him. First time I kissed him, I was helping him paint a Chaos Knight's war dog whilst we were at my place. He was hunched over the model, and I was sitting very close to him, pointing out where to place the paint. He looked very cute, concentrating on this tiny thing, which he was holding with his muscled arms. Before I thought too much, I leant him and kissed him on the cheek. He put down the paintbrush and model, straightened up to look at me and smiled, then went back to painting. That was that. We started dating. Dude, that's... What are you guys, like 5? Oh, no, sorry. Right, sorry. Okay. Like, that was very sweet. But, like, you know, that's the kind of thing my kid would do with a boy in school, you know what I mean? Like, that's adorable. I've been so happy since becoming his girlfriend. I still think he is far too good looking for me, and I'm still surprised by it all sometimes. Dude. Like, I'm going to stop interrupting, right? This will be the last interrupt I do. But, like, my missus says that to me. And I don't think she gets, or I don't think women get, right? Men, when they get to a certain age, right? By the way, my missus is beautiful, so don't get me wrong, she's gorgeous, and I fancy the pants off her. But she says that to me. It says, look, I've fancied you since high school. You know, you're way too good looking for me. All that stuff, right? But they don't realise that at a certain age, even if she was not beautiful, I'd still be with her, right? Because, you know, I value what's inside as much as what's on the outside. And what's inside is a gorgeous human being, right? And I think, even if by some hook or by crook miracle, Sarah, you're not on this guy's level looks-wise, it doesn't matter. Because you're into the same things he's into. You get along like a house on fire. You make each other laugh. You like spending your time together. This is it, right? This is a relationship he wants to be in, right? I'm telling you now. Gabrielle was much better looking than me. She was more developed in the chest, taller, and her eyes were a better proportion. I have these huge bug eyes. Sometimes I have to pinch myself that I'm actually his girlfriend. He got me to buy Helldivers 2, and we play online together sometimes, which is a lot of fun. In the beginning, I kept accidentally killing him with my sentry gun, and his voice would come through the headset. Sarah! Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I told John about my tales I've written, and we listened to them together. He laughed whenever you spoke about me being ravenous or thirsty, because you were. I can't believe you wrote that part about my arms and hands, he said, slapping his face. I'm sure you've made a few sex jokes by now, but no, we haven't done that. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Thank you very much. I'll explain. You don't need to. You don't need to. I'll still read this out, but you don't need to. I'll explain. After one evening, John asked me up to his apartment. Since Gabrielle stayed overseas, he has been living alone. He had to move all of her stuff to her parents' place when he got back, which was about as fun as it sounds. Anyway, we were in his car, and he asked me up. I can't go up. I'm waiting for marriage, so I said nervously. Last time I said this to a guy, he dumped me, and I was petrified John was going to do the same. He said he respected that a lot, and he promised me he would never try to make me change my mind, but he said I need to understand he had just lost his V plates, his virgin plates, some time ago. I told him I didn't care. The truth is, Mr. Exile, it wasn't him I was worried about. I wasn't worried that I wouldn't be able to restrain myself, but we stayed in the car. John went on. I actually asked you up because there's something you need to know about me in case you didn't want to stay, he said. John told me to include this part in the tale. He really respects what you try to do for men in your channel, and he thought this part of the story might save some men making the same mistake as him. Okay, cool. John had a child which he paid child support to. He didn't spend any time with the child. I asked him if the mother and child were a part of his life, or ever would be, and he said probably not. When John was much younger, he foolishly went to a girl's apartment one night, the night they had just met. She told him she was safe and protected. I'll give you the brief version. Months went past and out of nowhere she calls him, says she is pregnant with his baby, and gave him a list of very harsh demands. That sounds familiar! Just saying. Something very similar happened to me. Something very, very similar happened to me. I will open up a bit here because John is too. I was with a girl for a while. She told me she was on all sorts of protections, and I was stupid enough to believe her. So a few times we were unprotected in the other sense, like the male sense, right? And we broke up, quite naturally broke up, because she was not a very nice person to me or my family. So I dumped her like a ton of hot bricks. I walked away. And a few months later, she's calling me, she's harassing me, she's really, really, really getting on my nerves. And one day, I just snap and go, do you know what? I pick up the phone when she calls me again whilst I'm at work, and I say, look, I'm not getting back with you. I don't know what's wrong with you. And she goes, yeah, that's fine. Oh, by the way, I'm 10 weeks pregnant. Yeah. So, we go, and then the demands start, right? The money demands start. I remember like one time, I was in Durham at this point. I was actually at Durham. I was in my undergraduate course, and the university. I was saying to them, like, I didn't want to drop out, but I felt like responsible for this child that was going to be born. And they said, no, don't drop out. Here's what we'll do. We will give you a £5,000 grant per term. There are 3 terms in a year. And this was my first year of university. So they said, we will give you £5,000 a term. We won't even give it to you. We'll give it to her. For you to stay. That we are paying her so that you can stay at university. How cool is that? When I asked about taxes, they said, no, it's tax-free. It's a grant. It's not a loan. It's a grant. And the fund is there. Just in case this happens, we don't want students leaving university because they've gotten pregnant or because they've gotten their partner pregnant. So, I go to her with this. She doesn't want to do it. Because, and she gives me the reason, she will have to give them her address and her details, right? Fishy, I know, right? Eventually I find out, pretty much, she was on a load of benefits, basically getting a lot of money from the government, and didn't want me to know about it, because I was already giving her quite a bit of money. And she thought, like, if I found out about that, I cut off the tap straight away, and go, no, you're not doing that anymore, right? Which I would have done, by the way, because she was getting a lot. And she was so convinced that it would affect her other benefits. Even when the university and the government told her, no, it doesn't, she still wouldn't do it. She cut her own nose off to spite her face. She denied my daughter £30,000 to £40,000 that she could have had for really, really cool things when she was younger. Or even to put away for college, or whatever, it doesn't matter. She denied my daughter that because she was too proud to take the money. Fuck that bitch. Right? And that's the kind of person she was, right? So, trust me, I know what this guy's going through. Okay? I know full well what this guy's going through. Anyway, he said he needed to think and was told that he had one day to think about being in this child's life. He got some 15-minute free legal advice and told her he won't comply with any of her demands. When the baby comes, he wants a paternity test, and if it is his, he will work with her then. John figured she was the type of girl who was bedding lots of men, and he might be the only guy who answered. She told him if he does not do anything she says now, which included money, her moving in with him, introducing her to her parents, buying baby furniture, etc., then he will never see the child. John said he won't be bullied into anything. She started cursing him through the phone and swearing at him, so he hung up. Dude did the right thing. The baby came, the test showed it was his. She hired a lawyer that told her she was having 100% custody. She had no intention of him seeing the baby, and he could contest it in family court if he didn't like it. John had no savings after buying his apartment and was hit with the child support payments very quickly. He could not afford to take it to court, so he scraped by on the payments. While he was trying to save money, she started calling and messages his parents and uncles, trying to get money from them and saying how much of a bad person John was. When John's parents didn't respond, she stalked John's mother to her work and confronted her right there in front of her colleagues. John didn't mess around. He went straight to the police and got a restraining order. The whole thing was just horrible on John and his family. Years went by, and John finally had some savings. John told me he thought about it and decided just to leave things be. He said it may sound cruel, but he found he couldn't miss something he had never met, never seen in a photograph. The child was just an abstract to him that he had been sending monthly money to. And he knew starting proceedings would just unlock interactions between him and the mother, which he dreaded. He decided using all of his savings to maybe get access to a child he never met and didn't know him, and to allow this mother into his life was not worth it. He's right. He's right. And this is the... for a while, I made the same decision, right? Other things happened. I'm not going to say what they are, legally. Not to me. Not to me, right? Or to the mother's side of the family, right? Other things happened when I was finally given my access to my daughter, right? And we're growing a very good relationship right now, right? But for years, I was also treated this way, right? And by the time I had the money to contest things, it wasn't worth it. She was too old, right? I would be taking her away from her mother, and I'd be a stranger to her. I'd be the bad guy. And she knew that as well. This is why she did it that way, right? So I made the same decision this guy made. I said, listen, I'll walk away then. I'll pay the money, but I'll walk away. Because I'm a stranger to this child. He doesn't know who I am. And I'm only going to traumatize her by insisting on my rights. You know what I mean? I'm already not there, right? In the end, life works very strangely. You know, things went wrong on their side of the family, and I was able to get my access, and now we're building a really good relationship between us, and it's great, right? But for a while, you know, I had no access. And by the time I could fight for it with the money that I'd saved up, I didn't want to. I said, no, no. You know? And I think the way Sarah's put it here, you don't miss what you've never had. That's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of getting involved and then having it like stripped away from me again by this cruel, cruel woman who basically sees this daughter as a meal ticket, right? She uses her as a weapon. I was very, 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 very afraid of that. Of getting involved, falling in love with this little girl, and then being cut out again. I couldn't handle that, dude. I couldn't handle that, right? So I made the same decision, and I think you've done the right thing here, John. I really do. I think me and you would get on over a pint. I think we'd be able to talk this shit out. Anyway, he had no desire to bring the poison, hate, and exploitation from that woman back into his life. It was her decision to keep the child from him. He would allow her to bear the responsibility for that. Yeah. I understand if you want no business in that, Sarah, he said. Sitting there in the car, I did think about it. I knew I never wanted to be with somebody who already had children. It's messy, it's emotional, the other parents cause problems. I wanted a traditional family unit. They might seem harsh, that might seem harsh from me, but it's my life and I'm allowed to be. Yeah, damn right. Damn right you are. You do whatever you want. In that moment, I realised I loved this man because he was worth it. And if this horrible woman ever came back into his life, I hope it would be with me by his side. But I am no perfect person. I told John that when I married somebody, I would be selfish for his time, affection and love. Because that is what I would give to him. That I and our children must come first, and the same way I would put him first. So we are going well. I keep encouraging him to write in some nightmares of his own to you, but he prefers to listen to the stories of others. But he said if I wanted to write them in for him, I could. So maybe some tales coming your way shortly. We listened to the tale of Rabbit, the dysfunctional D&D player who told a single mum he wants to capture her in his Pokeball, and we laughed ourselves silly. Warm regards, Sarah. Well, that's probably one of the most heartwarming hobby nightmares you've ever had. One of the most epic too. So I hope you all enjoyed that. This video's an hour long, dude. It shows you just, if you give me a good hobby nightmare that's well written, I will sit here for hours reading them, right? So, I love you all a long time. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I'll speak to you tomorrow for some more 40k rantage, where we're going to be ranting about if you don't like Games Workshop's prices or the company in general, stop giving them money or stop moaning. I'll get into that tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye now.